Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another edition of Shaun Solo, and today I'm going to be talking about a game. Like always, That Dragon Cancer. It was released just a few days ago, actually, and it's developed and published by Numinous Games, by mainly Amy and Ryan Green, and also this other guy, Josh Larson. Those were the kind of the main three collaborators here. But the team is much bigger, and you can check it out in the credits. This was a Kickstarter game, I believe. And it basically deals with, it's a narrative adventure game, adventure game light, that's kind of autobiographical and deals with when Amy and Ryan Green found out that their 12-month-old son had terminal cancer. And it's incredibly personal story. It's incredibly, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Because this goes beyond personal. It's incredibly intimate. Like, it really feels like there are moments in this game that are incredible. Like, in terms of the way it makes you feel, the way it will make you empathize, it really puts you in that moment. And some of the moments is, like, it's incredibly effective in that way. Like, you will actually... I mean, like, I don't... I'm a pretty, like, cold, cynical person sometimes, but I got choked up with, like, at least a few parts of this game. Even when I didn't agree totally with, like, how, like, you know, in terms of, like, say I didn't agree with how they dealt with, like, the way their son, you know, kind of slowly dying over a few years, that's incorrect. That's not the right way to put it. I'm not a religious person at all. These people are very religious. They come at things from a very religious perspective. And in that sense, it was actually really interesting to kind of see, because it's a very honest and, like, open kind of take on faith and the trials of faith and what it means to have faith and what it means to believe in God in moments like this and how you may or may not ever falter from that. Really, like, engaging, really deep, like, serious shit, like, philosophical stuff. The game is kind of like this existentialist mind trip through kind of the psyche of these parents, and even sometimes it gives you a little bit of insight into what it must have felt like to have been their son. It's a really, like, touching story, and it's like one of those things. It's like this is their catharsis, and the thing about, like, this game. That, like, I guess, like, the reason why it's maybe best told as a game, actually, or not even as a game, but as an interactive experience rather than, like, a movie or a book or something like that, or a comic book or whatever. Like, it really, like, lets you take your own time with it. So you sit there and you kind of, there's, like, this kind of looming inevitability that kind of over the entire game, and as you push forward towards that inevitable end, you can feel almost like just like the parents must have felt in a certain respect. Obviously not in totality, but there's something that like, you know that it's happening even though you don't want it to happen, and you experience those feelings with, like, the parents, and there's some really, like, beautifully touching moments in terms of, like, just the parents talking to each other and having, like, incredibly, like, frank discussions, and because they're both the mother and father, Amy and Ryan, they dealt with their son's illness in kind of different ways, and they tested their faith in different ways, I guess, you know. And so it was interesting, and, like, you feel very. It's almost like weird. It's a weird thing to say, but you feel very privileged to kind of have this openness. Like, this touched me in a way that, like, some of my favorite documentaries have touched me over the years, in terms of, like, got my empathy engine running, and I really felt for these people, and it's because, like, they gave you kind of, like, this no holds barred look at it. Like, the game is painful in an emotional way while you're playing it, and I think that is because, you know, inevitably this does not end well. So even though the game takes you through the highs and the lows of, like, what it was like to, you know, take care of their son and to be with him while he's in the hospital and to be there when he's feeling better and, like, to be there when he's happy and to make him laugh and to try to, like, calm him when he's sad, try to get him to eat and, like, and not throw up, you know, like, the game does a good job of just inviting you into that in a way that like is it's really effective, I guess. I'm kind of at a loss, a little bit of a loss for words for it, because I've played a lot of like narratively driven games, and like this new thing, and well, not new thing, but it's kind of this reemergence of this thing, and a lot of the stories are like these incredibly like myopic, fucking like the thing that comes to mind because it was the most recent was this video game I played, Sybil. And I talked about it a little bit on my kind of like most disappointing games of 2015. And I kind of put Sybil on that list because it was kind of the poster child to me for all those kinds of games. So if you take even something like Sybil or Gone Home, it is like such this myopic, narrow, almost like narcissistic view of like how to tell stories and what it means, like what life means and what life's about, and like the struggles of the single like middle class white like person in their 20s, the plight of them. Like that's something like we need to hear more about. And then you get something like this juxtaposed with it, and it's just like, it's incredible. It's like night and day. Like this is something that actually like matters, has merit, and even larger beyond like the conversation of like of video games. Like it's something that has merit in the sense that somebody could find real actual catharsis in this, like if maybe like in terms of commiseration or whatnot. Not to say that you can't with something like Sybil, because like, you know, I talked about it, like I don't want to talk about Sybil very much, but on my most disappointing games, I talked about like what the things in that game, because I recognize a lot of things in myself in that game. It's just not as revelatory and as like deep and honest, I think, as people put it off, but this actually is. And I have a feeling that because these people have like kind of a hardline religious like belief, that a lot of the press, I have not seen the press all over this thing pushing it in the same way that I've seen other games like Gone Home or Sybil, like, or something like that, which again, those games are completely fine, and if people get, you know, positive things out of them, that's great, that's awesome. Like I really enjoyed Gone Home when I played it like a few years ago. I don't know if it would hold up anymore, but when I first played it, before all the hype and stuff, like I enjoyed myself. But yeah, but like, so to me, like, there's just more of like a real life merit to this, and in the sense that it's not grating, and it doesn't feel like whinging or whining, or like this is not a universal experience, but there's a lot of people that are going to go through something like this specifically. Or even just the parents having to lose their kid. But they didn't not just lose their kid. Like, they had to watch their kid die over years, and they knew it was going to happen. They knew eventually this road ends in this child's passing. That's fucking heavy. That's really heavy. And how do you cope with that? This game lets you into how they coped with it. And it doesn't give you any answers. It doesn't give you any, like, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't give you any catharsis, like, other than, like, commiseration. Other than to say that, like, you know, basically the best you can do is try to, like, the best you can do and hope for is that, like, you can help this person's passing be as comfortable as possible. That's all you can do. That's literally all you can do. You're at the whims of something you have no control over. And incredibly effective in that respect. You know, I've never really had any dealings with, like, anybody with cancer myself, but, you know, you can't help but just, like, feel for these people. These are people that are obviously in pain, and it was really, I have a lot of respect for them for, like, sharing their story. You know, not just because I'm sure it helped them work through some stuff and their own feelings, but because I think it really, like I said, I think this is actually like a positive thing that's been put out into the world. Like, it's a story that, like, people, like, you know, parents that have had to deal with this, or if you've ever lost anybody like this, or if you lost anybody in general, like, you know, there's kind of a universal nature to how people deal with loss, no matter the context. If you have a heart, if you're not a fucking crazy person, but like, But so, like, this game gets at that, I suppose. And it kind of reminded me of that, you know, because my father suddenly passed, like, a few years ago. So I didn't, like, have, like, this, like, the drawn-outness of it. But a lot of the conclusions they come to, a lot of the struggles, the coping that they have to deal with, while they're, you know, during the game, and while you experience it with them, is very similar. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of crossover. And so it kind of just reminded me of that kind of that universal notion of loss. And how we all human beings, they're you know, people, you know, like they'll make remarks about things that humans do and they call, well, that's human nature. And that's true. There is commonalities in all of us, you know, when we're dealing with, you know, like happiness or sadness, tragedy, success. Like there are things across the board that we all deal with the things in a very similar way, so there's a predictability there. So it was really inspiring, a very inspiring adventure game, little game. There is some negatives to it, though, unfortunately. Like, this is not the most well constructed or playing game. In fact, like, the control scheme is so clunky that it detracted from the experience at times. And that sucks. And that really does, because, like, you would just be wrestling with controls rather than kind of further immersing yourself into the story or into, like, this autobiography, you know, like, so it made it difficult. There's one point in the games, towards the end of the game, in particular, where you're in you're the father and you're trying to get your son to eat and stop crying, and like it's incredibly effective because just because I've been around sick babies in my life. I'm the oldest of like 5 kids, so I've been around sick babies in my life, and like I know how that is, you know, just in general. So imagine having to deal with a baby that has actually like terminal cancer, and they're just in constant pain and whatnot, like, and then trying and not understanding how to help them and just pleading with God or whoever, and like just to give them some fucking peace, you know, give me some peace, because then there's also like a selfishness to it that you're like, I'm exhausted, I'm fucking starving, I'm going crazy because this is happening to you. And it's that like inability to do anything, that neutered feeling that we've, like, you know, when we have no control over something. And like the game gets it across so well, but then I had to deal with the fucking controls. And sometimes unclear objective things where like I just didn't know where to go in the room. Like you have to go to the same places in the room over and over again, but the game does not effectively kind of point you in that direction all the time. Sometimes it does, which makes it confusing when it doesn't. So there was stuff like that I was kind of like, it makes it so close. It makes it just like hard to say, like, oh, this is like the perfect, amazing little experience that you can have, and like maybe take something away from, and maybe have a good cry. It's good to have a good cry every once in a while. Maybe a little tear up. I definitely did. I definitely choked up a few times, like I said before. Like, and that scene I'm talking about was one I was like really invested in the moment. Like I had my headphones on. It was kind of dim in the room. Like I was just in there. I was in it. But other than that, like I can't really say that it's, you know, this is an incredibly small team of people made this game, and even though the controls are a little clunky, I think the presentation is actually really cool. It's got really neat art style, kind of unique art style, like almost like a kind of weird cell shading type thing. On top of that, there's amazing audio mixing. Like the audio is the key to this game. Whether it's like the parents' kind of personal testimonials that you hear them read, or it's just the way the music and like actual audio recordings of their family like kind of are weaved in and out of things as you're moving around the world at times. Really effective, really effective. And I'd even say this about the music. Like a lot of times, like I would say, like music and something like this, there's the opportunity to be like incredibly like leading and emotionally manipulative, because that's a lot of times that's what music is used for in like film, especially like, if you think about film, video games too. They're trying to like set off certain things in your brain. It is signaling to you a tone, telling you if you should be happy, telling you if you should be sad, telling you if you should feel melancholy. And I think this game actually kind of has like almost like a neutral music, in the sense that I never felt like it was really trying to get me to feel like a specific way. I think the game is actually like pretty open to like your personal interpretation of this kind of stuff, and that's what that's why kind of going back to what I was saying before, like, I think, like, the fact that these people, like, have, like, a hardened religious belief is actually probably going to hurt some of the coverage for a game like this. And that's actually why I wanted to make this video. And that's coming from somebody that's not religious at all. Like, I was raised Catholic, I have long since lapsed, and I have no business with any of that shit. Like, I just don't care about it. At all. Like, if there is a God, if there isn't, like, I don't even go that deep with it. It doesn't even concern me. Like, I take no hard line stance on anything. But, like, these people really did, and like, I even had to check myself a little bit, when I was like, why would you do, like, for just a second, I was just like, well, you know, that's too bad that you are, like, you know, unrealistic about this, or whatever, you're not being pragmatic enough. It's just like, then I just, like, sit back, like, this all happened within the span of 5 seconds, and then you're just like, in your brain, it might as well have been an hour, like, having a little conversation with myself. I'm like, well, this is what these fucking people, this is what they believe, this is what they're finding hope in. And because I always have, like, kind of, like, my opinion on, like, religion is, like, if that's what, like, helps you get through your day, if that's what makes your life better, your quality of life, it makes you want to be a productive citizen, it makes you want to do right things, or do the right thing, rather. Do right things. I sound like a caveman. Not just because of the beard, but because of my brain and the way it thinks. Yeah, so, like, and then once it did take me a second, I had to kind of move past that. Once I moved past that, I was really able to, like, you just get in there and you empathize, and, you gotta be a little more judgment-free, because it's a really weird thing to be judgmental about, but, like, how the grieving process of a stranger. It's an absurd, like, thing to even think. But, like, you know, it's human nature. Like, if we don't see ourselves reflected in something sometimes, we're like, what the fuck? Well, you're obviously wrong and stupid. You know, that is that's part of human nature, you know. Doesn't, like, reflect our value systems, then we just disagree with it. But yeah, so I would definitely recommend this if you are into kind of narratively driven games. You want to have, like, something that is, like, kind of a very sentimental, very, like, personal kind of narrative experience. It's not really, it's like it's not a game. I'm not going to say it's a game. It's got some gameplay elements to it, but it's not really a game in the classical sense. So if you're looking for a more classical point and click, because it's like, I think it's under the moniker of, like, or the genre of adventure game, and it's that's a very generous label. But there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. I've said this, I'm pretty sure anytime I talk about any kind of narratively driven games, I am not the type of person that says this is a game and this is not because of, like, these reasons. It's an art form just like any other. It's just in the same way, like, I don't, like, judge film that way, I don't judge paintings that way. Like, why would I judge video games that way? So, yeah. I would say give it a go, because it's a project worth supporting. Like I said, it was a Kickstarter game. I guess obviously it was successful. But it's a cause worth giving to. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I thought I heard something about the Numinous Games, the creators, saying that at least I think part of it goes to charity in terms of, like, cancer research and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure on that, don't quote me on that, but I think I did hear something like that. So if you do buy this game, you know, you'll be helping charity out, which is cool. That's a good thing. You should always help charities, if you can. Good ones. You gotta do your research, though. Charities are weird like that. Like, there's so many, like, kind of disingenuous charities out there. You know, you'll donate, like, $25, say, and, like, really, like, $2 goes to the actual cause. It's ridiculous. But anyways, this is a topic for another time. That has nothing to do with video games. What the fuck are you doing, boy? Anyways, so yeah. I would say give it a go. You know, I'm sure it'll be, like, it's a little steep, I think. I think it's $20. It's either 15 or $20. If you could get it on sale, you know, if you just want to play it, I'd say, if you like this kind of stuff, it's totally worth your money. For me, it's worth my money. You know, it's about a 3.5 hour game. Like, I pay that much for a fucking movie, so I'll pay that much for a game. Like, to me, I look at it kind of that way when it comes to these kind of more narratively driven games. But But I'm sure it'll be on sale at some point. Like, it would be worth like $10, something like that. But yeah. Alright, everybody, that's going to do it for me. I'm Shaun, and I will talk to you next time I got something to talk about.